YouTube. We got the McDonald's Massacre, tragedy that changed America's history. Now, I have not heard of this. I don't even know what it's about. But we're about to react to it right
Hamburgers, french fries, hot for you.
now. I don't know why, but he always creeped me out about. This is something about him and it. It is more creepier.
And warm and
It's fun to do.
it's a good time, but a great taste.
Doesn't mean a lot if you don't get it hooked.
On McDonald's.
For millions of Americans, McDonald's has been more than just a restaurant. It's a childhood memory, a fast and affordable meal, and one of the most recognizable brands in the world. By the 1980s, McDonald's had become a cornerstone of American culture, with thousands of locations across the
How long McDonald's been?
country, serving millions of customers every day. Families, workers, and children alike found comfort in the Golden Arches. But on one tragic summer afternoon in 1984, that sense of
Bro, this eye right here is swollen. It's getting fogged up, bro.
comfort
Like
was shattered. July 18, 1984, started like any other day. Customers placed their orders, employees worked their shifts, and families gathered for a meal. But by sundown, the San Ysidro McDonald's would become the site of one of the most deadliest shootings in American history. One that would forever change law enforcement tactics and public safety measures across the country. So what led a seemingly ordinary man to commit such an unthinkable act? How did law enforcement respond to the worst mass shooting of its
Got
time?
big boys out, bro.
And what lasting impact did this tragedy have on McDonald's and public safety in America? Let's try and find out.
Hello, I'm Mike Droberg, Marine Corps veteran and filmmaker, and we will try to answer these questions on today's episode of Forgotten History.
Y'all see you swollen? There's this eye. You look creepy.
To understand the horror that unfolded on July 18, 1984, we first have to understand the man behind it, James Huberty,
That's why I ain't never heard of a cute person. Way before my time.
a 41-year-old former welder and security guard. Huberty was by
Oh,
most
no, he got
accounts an
guns.
angry and unpredictable man. Born in Canton, Ohio in 1942, he had a troubled childhood. After his mother abandoned the family for a life of religious evangelism, Huberty was left
Why do every, like, serial killer always claim, oh, I have a troubled childhood, I had a troubled childhood, and this I turned. Like, well, I don't think Jeffrey Dahmer said he had a troubled childhood. He just, I don't know what his problem.
left to be raised by a strict father. This early instability seemed to shape his resentment towards the world. Despite his rough upbringing, Huberty seemed to settle into a relatively normal life. He married his wife Etna and had 2 daughters, and moved to various states for work. As a skilled welder, he found employment in Ohio, but like many Americans in the early 1980s, struggled when the economy took a downturn. When the local steel industry collapsed, Huberty lost his job, and the financial strain only worsened his growing paranoia and rage. In 1983, desperate for a fresh start, the family moved to San Ysidro, California, just a few miles away from the US-Mexico border. But the change of scenery did little to ease his troubles. Unable to find welding work, Huberty took a job as a security guard, but was soon fired. His anger grew, and he became obsessed with doomsday scenarios and conspiracies, believing that society was on the brink of collapse. Adding to his instability, Huberty suffered from a neurological disorder, possibly stemming from a childhood case of polio. In early July of 1984, he visited a mental health clinic, claiming he was hearing voices. But when no one returned his call, he took it as a sign that help wasn't coming. On July 17th, the day before the massacre, Huberty ominously told his wife society had its chance. The next morning, he took his family to the San Diego Zoo for what seemed to be an ordinary day out. They ate together, watched the animals, and returned home. But that evening, he told his wife he was going hunting for humans.
You let him go?
After leaving the house, at exactly 3:56 p.m., James Huberty walked into the San Ysidro McDonald's, carrying 3 firearms and a bag full of ammunition. What happened next would be one of the deadliest mass shootings of the decade. Employees behind the counter barely noticed Huberty at first. After all, people came and went all day. But something about this man was different.
This is not part of the
Dressed
video,
in military-style fatigues,
but I'm going to start a Discord so y'all can like stuff, videos to react. Sometimes I don't be having videos to react to. So probably in the next video reaction I have a Discord up and ready, and y'all can like send me some reaction videos, stuff like that. So y'all be on the lookout for that next couple of videos.
with dark sunglasses and a bag slung over his shoulder. He wasn't there to order food. Before anyone could react, Huberty pulled out a 9mm Uzi and raised it towards the counter. One employee, 17-year-old John Arnold, was standing at the register when Huberty pointed the weapon directly at him. But instead of firing, Huberty simply pulled the trigger. Click. Nothing. The gun had jammed. For a brief moment, silence filled the restaurant. John Arnold froze, expecting to die, but nothing happened. His manager, 22-year-old Hernandez Herrera, snapped at him, thinking he was joking. "Stop fooling around and get back to work," she said. But before anyone had time to process what was happening, Huberty fixed the jam, adjusted his grip, and pulled the trigger again. And this time, the gun fired. His first victims were 22-year-old Victor Rivera and 6-year-old Carlos Reyes. As Huberty unleashed a hail of bullets, customers dove for cover, some trying to hide beneath tables, others desperately attempting to escape. As the gunfire continued, panic spread through the restaurant. Some employees managed
Why does this remind me of Mafia?
to escape through the back door, but for those trapped inside, there was nowhere to run. Huberty methodically walked from table to table, shooting at anyone in sight. In a horrific display of cruelty, he targeted families, including 11-year-old David Delgado and his mother, who were killed while trying to shield one another. The attack lasted for 77 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. In total, Huberty would fire over 250 rounds, with many of his victims being children, including the 8-month-old Carlos Gallardo, who was shot in his mother's arms. At 4 p.m., the first police officers arrived on scene, but due to initial confusion, officers believed the shooter was holding hostages inside, leading to a delay in action. As the gunfire continued, SWAT teams prepared for a possible standoff. Outside, horrified bystanders watched in terror, knowing their loved ones were trapped inside. For nearly an hour, James Huberty continued his rampage. Law enforcement maintained a perimeter, but didn't immediately storm the building. Inside, the death toll continued to rise. Finally, at 5:17 p.m., after over 77 minutes of carnage, a SWAT sniper, positioned on a nearby rooftop, was given the order to fire. One shot. That was all it took. The bullet struck Huberty in the chest, killing him instantly. But before being killed by the SWAT sniper, Huberty's last known words were allegedly, "I've killed thousands, and I'll kill 1,000 more. By the time James Huberty was taken down, the San Ysidro McDonald's had become a war zone. Bodies lay scattered across the floor. Bloodstained walls and a once bustling restaurant had turned into a scene of unimaginable horror. The final death toll was a staggering 21 people killed and 19 others wounded. San Ysidro, a quiet border town, was left shaken. In the following days, makeshift memorials were placed outside the McDonald's, where grieving families and residents gathered to mourn the victims.
Imagine going out to eat, normal day, not knowing this is your last to eat, ever get to see your family, all because of this one crazy nigga.
The city of San Diego declared a state of emergency, and nationwide, Americans were left asking the same question: how could this happen? Following the massacre, speculation grew about what drove James Huberty to commit such a heinous act. Some pointed to his financial struggles, others to his untreated mental illness. His wife, Etna, later claimed that he had been seeking psychiatric help in the days before the attack, but was ignored. Psychologists later diagnosed Huberty posthumously with severe paranoid schizophrenia. His growing paranoia, violent tendencies, and the belief that society had failed him all culminated in the worst mass shooting of the decade. But we may never fully understand what drove him to commit such an atrocity.
Nope.
The impact of the massacre reached far beyond San Ysidro. McDonald's, as a company built on family-friendly branding, found itself at the center of public outrage after the massacre. While they were not legally responsible for the shooting, people associated the tragedy with the company itself since it happened inside a McDonald's restaurant. Some victims' families and members of the public believe that McDonald's should have done more to prevent the attack or better protect its customers.
They do, man. The man had 3 armed weapons, firing at random people, and the people that was working in the restaurant probably had nothing. What you want them to do? Fight them? People, man.
Huberty's widow, Etna, filed a $5 million lawsuit against McDonald's and the gun manufacturers Uzi America and B.L. Jennings, Inc. She argued that McDonald's food contained high levels of monosodium glutamate, MSG, which she claimed triggered her husband's violent behavior by affecting his mental state.
Blame it on the food.
She also suggested that McDonald's security measures were inadequate, leaving customers defenseless against an attack like this. Her claims against the gun manufacturers were as follows. She alleged that they were responsible for selling firearms to an unstable individual, contributing to the massacre. However, the court dismissed all of Etna Huberty's claim due to the lack of evidence. The idea that the McDonald's food could have influenced Huberty's action was widely ridiculed and rejected in the court. The gun manufacturers were also not held responsible, as Huberty had legally purchased his weapons. And even though McDonald's wasn't legally at fault, they faced public pressure to take responsibility in some form. Victims' families demanded that the location never be reopened and instead be turned into a memorial site. Initially, McDonald's offered financial assistance to the victims' families, but was hesitant to tear down the restaurant. However, due to the massive public outcry, McDonald's demolished the building in 1985, less than a year after the massacre. The land was later donated to Southwestern College, which built a satellite campus on site. A memorial plaque was placed there to honor the victims. The massacre exposed critical failures in law enforcement response. At the time, standard police procedure was to contain an active shooter situation and wait for SWAT teams to intervene. But in mass shootings, every second counts. The 77-minute delay in stopping Huberty led to harsh criticism of law enforcement's handling of the event. As a result, police across the United States overhauled their approach to mass shootings. Departments adopted new active shooter protocols, emphasizing immediate engagement to neutralize threats faster. The tragedy at San Ysidro changed the way law enforcement responds to mass shootings, paving the way for modern-day tactics. 21 innocent people lost their lives that day, their only mistake being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I say you always got to
Despite the horrific death toll, many people survived, often by pure luck or quick thinking. A family of 5 survived by hiding in a booth, playing dead for over an hour. A mother and her 11-year-old son were shot multiple times but survived by lying motionless. And several employees escaped through the back exit before Huberty could reach them. Shortly after the shooting, Huberty's wife Etna and his daughters fled San Ysidro and changed their names. Etna Huberty later claimed that her husband had warned her of his plans, but that she didn't take him seriously. The San Ysidro McDonald's Massacre remains one of the darkest days in modern American history, a senseless act of violence that stole 21 innocent lives and left a lasting scar on the nation. While the tragedy exposed critical failures in law enforcement response, it also led to sweeping changes in active shooter protocols, ensuring that future incidents would be met with faster and more decisive action. Though the site of the massacre has long since been replaced, the memory of that fateful day and the lives lost should never be forgotten. We remember the victims, the survivors, and the lessons learned. What do you think? Could this tragedy have been prevented? Let us know in the comments.
RP to all the people that lost their lives. Massacre. 8 months. It was only that's crazy. But let me know what you guys think about this down in the comment section below me. That's crazy. That's wild.